Okay.
Welcome back to another episode of Reacting to Crash Videos. This episode, I think, is going to be one of the better ones. I got a lot of good submissions from you guys, and I found a couple pretty good clips online. This episode, we're going to have 4 different crashes, always as we do, going from the smallest minor up to the major ones with the big backstories and lots of good information. So with that said, stick around to the end to see those. If you find this episode useful, entertaining, any of the above, just drop a like. Even if you hated it, drop a like. And if you want to look handsome in a nice blueprint t-shirt, check out Risky Biscuits Co. TuckerGott.com down in the description. Got a lot of merch. We've got ozone wings. Hit me up, info@tuckergott.com, if you need help selecting an ozone wing that's right for you. All right, let's start with clip number 1. Now this one I'm putting first because it's not really a crash, but it could have gone horribly wrong. My man David reached out to me and sent me this clip, and he said at the time of this incident, he's a fairly new pilot and he had about 15 hours. He said he watched some videos on the internet. He had never done any aerobatic flying with his paramotor, and he went out and decided to do some deep spirals. Now, if you're a paramotor pilot, your alarm might be going off already because deep spirals is not really a thing that we tend to practice, but we'll talk about that after the clip. Let's take a look. Dude, I don't even know how he pulled that off. It's hard to even tell what really happened. I mean, his wing surged, he seemed to have a bit of line twist for a moment, probably took some sort of asymmetric collapses, and then all of a sudden somehow it sorts itself out and he flies away. So let's talk about spirals first. I'm gonna link a video down below made by my good buddy Shane. He made an entire video dedicated to just the subject, so if this is something you wanna learn more about, watch that video. Basically, the thing is, spiral dives are not really like a thing, or round spirals. They're not something we really practice for a couple reasons. One, because it's not really a skill. Just pulling brake and holding it and ripping around in a circle and coming down, a monkey could do that. It's not something that you're learning really, you're just yanking brake and holding it. And while doing that, it puts you in a somewhat dangerous position. One, if you're cranking around in a round spiral, you're building G-forces and you can risk blacking out. You can also risk damaging equipment if you build too many G's and your equipment isn't designed to handle high G-forces. And 3, when you're a new pilot, you don't know what to do with that much energy until it's too late. And that is exactly what we saw here. Part of learning aerobatic maneuvers is learning how to manage the energy of the wing. And that takes time. And if you just suddenly build up a ton of energy and let it go and you don't know what to do with it, that's exactly what happens here. The key to it all is learning how to manage that energy, and that's how you develop into wing overs and barrel rolls. You build energy by diving, and then you release it and you use it to your advantage, throwing it in other directions, doing barrel rolls, things like that. If you want to practice getting into acro, the thing is to start doing asymmetric spirals, where you bank into a spiral a little bit, recover, and you get kind of the flow of what the wing wants. All right, let's go to clip number 2. Now this one was sent to me from a guy up in Canada. And basically the situation here is they drove out to a field, more like a frozen lake or something. There's snow everywhere, and the conditions were trash. And they launched and quickly found out that there was a lot of rotor, there was a lot of turbulence, and it was not conducive to flying. He's on approach to landing, and if you freeze the frame, it's about a 60% collapse. More than half of his wing comes in. Whether the wing recovered itself or if the pilot really initiated the recovery, it's hard to tell from the video. Regardless, the wing recovers just in time for him to literally flare, land softly, and be totally fine. Now, just judging by this video clip, it's hard to tell exactly what the wind conditions were that day or what the issue was, if it was mechanical turbulence, if it was a weather system. I doubt it was thermals, just based off the clouds and the climate and everything. Regardless, it just kind of reinforces the idea of flying within our limitations. Paramotors are nylon wings, and we fly under strings. That kind of rhymed. We're very lightweight crafts, so we can't really handle a ton of turbulence, and you have to pick your battles in conditions that are suitable for us. I think these guys knew that the conditions were pretty spicy, and I think he was actually coming into land at the time. But overall, you just gotta pick your battles, be careful when it comes to weather and turbulence, and just stay within the limits of the craft. It's all decision making at the end of the day. Okay, on to clip number 3. Now this one has to do with towing, and we've talked about towing in the past. And the general rule of towing paramotors is it's dangerous, and only do it with a certified tow operator in the correct set of conditions, the right equipment. You have to respect towing. Don't just go out with a length of rope, redneck style, and hook up to an ATV like we're about to see.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, ow.
This could hurt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Generally, the reason you don't want to tow like this is because of a lockout situation where the pilot gets off center of the tow line and it pulls them to the side and they slam the ground at a high rate of speed. This one was a bit unique because it was actually kind of like a surge pendulum crash situation. But if you're gonna tow, do it the right way. Do it with a tow operator that knows what they're doing, a long line, a winch system behind a boat, not with an ATV and a short length of rope. It's just not worth it. The temptation is always there, especially, you know, when you're sitting around, you're bored, it's maybe too turbulent to fly. You're like, hey, I got all the tools here, let's go send it, but it's not a good idea. All right, so clip number 4 requires a bit of backstory. Salton Sea, California, there's always a big fly-in there every February. I've never been to the actual fly-in, I've been to the Salton Sea. It's basically a vacant lake sort of thing that's a mecca for paramotor flying. This year, I get a message from a guy named Jesse, and basically he says he was involved in a mid-air collision, and it really kind of freaked him out a bit. He was okay, he didn't hurt anything. The other pilot was fine as well. But he said the problem was no one had it on video. Of all the pilots and people around and GoPros everywhere, he didn't have video and no one could find any video. And he was actually kind of having a little bit of trouble remembering exactly what happened because everything happened so quick. And he was reaching out to me to say, basically, people send me a lot of video clips, and he's like, if you see anything, please just let me know, because I want to know, exactly what it looked like. Weeks, months go by, I hadn't seen anything, and then one day I go to my P.O. box and I get a letter. It almost looked like junk mail, but I felt there was something in it, so I opened it up, found this letter with a USB little thing taped to it. This letter says, included is a thumb drive with GoPro footage from a mid-air collision I caught on film flying in the February Salton Sea fly-in. I don't personally know either pilot, those were some crowded skies, my back was turned at the time of the crash. I was shocked while reviewing the footage to see I'd caught it on film. I had forgotten my camera was even running. Signed, Jeff Bell. So I get this in the mail, and at first I'm like, I'm kind of scared to put this USB thing in my computer because maybe it's a virus. But I thought, it can't get more coincidental than this. I put it in my computer. Lo and behold, here's the footage of the mid-air collision. You can see there's obviously quite a few pilots in the sky, and from what I've heard, there were many, many more not in frame. These two pilots were heading right at each other. Jesse is on the bottom, and actually my buddy Ryan was up top. Ryan tries to make an evasive maneuver right at the last second. They collide, chopping Jesse's wing Luckily, Jesse, I think, was under a 28-meter Gin Bolero, which is an A-wing, a very stable, safe wing, and I think he was relatively lightly loaded on that wing. So basically, with a third of his wing chopped off, the wing barely even cared. He was able to kind of turn it into the wind and land almost without any issue. I spoke to and sent this footage to both Jesse and Ryan, the two pilots in this situation. And basically, I think what it came down to was it's a mid-air collision. They were going head on. Both pilots assume responsibility. Ryan, who was the higher pilot, said he saw Jesse kind of at the last second, jammed an evasive maneuver, and he said he saw the wing coming up straight at him. He lifted his legs. I think his feet basically went in the cell openings of the wing, and he said he got covered in fabric, and his motor basically just shredded a hole through the wing. He popped out on the other side and turned around to see basically a third of Jesse's wing missing. Luckily for both of them, Jesse made that turn, landed nice and softly. I think the biggest thing to take away from this situation is just the fact that at these fly-ins, you can get so many pilots in the air that mid-air collisions do happen. That's one of the reasons I'm not a really big fan of going to fly-ins like this. I've been to a couple in the past, and when you get that many pilots in the air, especially pilots that you don't know, you're not familiar with, you don't really trust so much, you don't know their flying level or ability or anything, it just gives me anxiety, and I just want to get up and out and leave the area. But that's kind of one of the things about fly-ins, like there's so many pilots, it's just kind of a higher probability that someone is caught in someone else's blind spot and maybe they collide. I'm really glad both of these pilots were okay, and I really appreciate Jeff for sharing that footage with me. If you're watching Jeff, you're the man. He's the hero in this situation. So those are my 4 clips. That's about all I've got for this one. If you liked this episode, if you found it helpful or entertaining, please drop a like, share it with your friends on Facebook, email it to your mom, post it up on your Twitter. And if you want a sweet Risky Biscuits Co. t-shirt, key tag, sticker decal, hoodie, hat, ozone wing, E-props propeller, any of those things, check out tuckergott.com down in the description. I'll see you guys in the next episode for probably a flying adventure. Till then, peace. Zip.